Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the State of California's Senate Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Communications. Today, I thought it'd be a good idea to put together an oversight hearing regarding the Aliso Canyon and related to specifically not only that incident, but the Southern California energy reliability grid. And we're concerned that this facility has been used as a very reliable means of distributing gas throughout Southern California because of its size. The immensity of this project allows for gas to be distributed a certain way, and the lack of this will potentially cause a disruption in the delivery of gas to Southern California, and we want to get into the nuts and bolts of what that is. If many of you don't know, especially those watching, if this is being televised, that on October 23rd of last year, of 2015, the Southern California Gas Company discovered a leak at a well at the company's Aliso Canyon gas storage facility. For more than 100 days, the well continued to dump tons of methane gas into the atmosphere, along with irritants and other substances that created chaos in the neighboring communities. According to the California Air Resources Board, the leak emitted almost 100,000 tons of methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas that added approximately 20% to the statewide methane emissions over its duration. So of all the state of California's methane emissions, this represented 20% of that total. Many residents from the nearby Porter Ranch community suffered noxious odors. Many had to be hospitalized. Others reported more serious health effects, including nosebleeds, rashes, and respiratory problems. Hundreds were relocated from their homes. Despite assurances from the public health agencies, many fear the leak's long-term health effects are still unknown. While the Aliso Canyon leak continued unabated, Governor Brown issued an emergency proclamation. Among other things, the proclamation ordered the Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources, also known as DOGGR, which is the agency responsible for the regulation of the storage facility in the wells. The proclamation ordered the division to prohibit SoCalGas from injecting any gas into Aliso Canyon storage facility until the completion of a comprehensive review utilizing independent experts regarding the safety of the storage and that facility. That study is still underway, but since then we have seen that facility come offline. This summer we expect that there will be a spike demand in gas use, and with that there may be unexpected brownouts. So we have put together today a team of technical experts that will analyze the technical report and action plan that was recently introduced. We will hear from the electrical and gas utilities that will need to provide energy service to Southern California this summer under the constrained conditions that I described. We will have two panels. The first panel consists of a representative of four energy agencies that prepared the Aliso Canyon technical assessment and the Aliso Canyon action plan. The panel consists of senior officials from the California Energy Commission, the California Public Utilities Commission, the California Independent Systems Operator, and the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. That panel will be joined by a representative of the Southern California Gas Company, who, as I understand, played a very key role in the development of the technical plan, a role I intend on spending some time exploring today. The second panel consists of representatives of the energy companies that will need to provide the electric gas to Southern California, LADWP, Southern California Edison, and Center Gas and Electric, the Southern California Public Power Authority, and of course SoCalGas. The committee understands that the analysis is of a very technical nature, so we will try to delve into some of those. But I want to begin, if there are any comments being made by the committee, if you guys want to make some opening remarks before I call up the panel.
Would it be okay just to say a few things?
Sure.
Thank you very much. I felt like I should, since I represent that area and it's in my district. But first of all, Chair Wace, I want to thank you for holding this hearing. I think it's very timely. I had attended the energy workshop on reliability down in Woodland Hills about a month ago and had read the comprehensive action plan, and applaud your staff for their briefing, particularly the chart summarizing some of the action statements that are on page 5 in the analysis. But I wanted to take this time to just put a little bit of human face on this whole tragedy. 32,000 people live next door to Aliso Canyon. 2 schools have been relocated. The kids still aren't going to their neighborhood school. They're being bused several miles away. Over 3,000 homeowners have not returned to their homes. They've been living either in hotels or renting a place somewhere out. They're not sure if it's safe. They're not sure if the other 114 wells, which many of them are as old as the one that failed, will stand the test of additional pressure filling up the reservoir. So there is a human cost and a human face. And the purpose of this hearing and other workshops that will be forthcoming, I'm sure, will be how can collectively we all work together, one, to assure this doesn't happen again, and two, have we done everything we can to make sure that we're not faced with that difficult choice of energy reliability or public safety? In my mind, the safety of the residents comes first. The wells are being tested through noise and temperature tests, the first 2 stages of a really thoughtful 6-stage test. They're almost finished with that. So we're moving in the right direction, but I don't want to rush forward in some modeling assumptions that may or may not pan out over time. So what can we do to, yes, address summer reliability, maybe just as important winter reliability, but also ensure the safety of the homeowners who call my office and want to know if I can assure them that it'll be safe to return. So with that, I welcome the presentation by the panelists you've selected.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate those comments. I have my own questions regarding, this facility. It just seems to me that with all the progress we've made technologically, that our state is depending on a huge hole in the ground as one of the largest storage facilities in the nation, providing gas to one of the largest markets in the nation, that seems to be the most appropriate technology.
And we haven't done a great job in diversifying our energy supply, whether it's wind or solar or your favorite geothermal, which would all help provide some stability in meeting our energy needs and goals.
And and I understand that, but also I understand that gas is a fuel source that is going to be here for quite a while.
Right.
And that'll be one of my questions to whoever comes up. I mean, I understand, maybe in 1950 this was probably a reasonable place to store gas. But after a while, you got to expect that those even nature's best,
Yeah. It
you
was
know,
oil field till
the
the late
50s, late
60s
60s.
oil, and then it converted to natural gas in 1972. The homeowners received entitlements to build in the 80s. That's when most of the bills. So it was
So it was an open space, and it was far from residential, and our state has grown
allowed.
and enveloped around it. I understand that.
Yeah.
But even today, thinking, it might have worked for 40 years or so. But is that the best way to
Long term.
handle
Yeah.
natural
right.
gas long term? It just seems to me that it's a very antiquated way. Maybe it might be, and maybe I'd like to know from the companies what systems they think can be improved under this. But it just seems to me that it's a very antiquated way. I wonder if it could be done better. That's my question, and I'd
Good.
love to have somebody
Thank you.
ask if they can explain that, because maybe there is no better way. But it just seems to me pressurizing gas can hold more in a smaller space as opposed to having it in its inert form. Well, we're going to begin with Robert Oglesby. Welcome back to our committee. He's the Executive Director of the California Energy Commission. Edward F. Randolph is the Director of the Energy Division for the California Public Utilities Commission. Welcome. Mark Rothlader is the Vice President of Market Quality and Renewable Integration for the California Independent System Operator. We have Roger Schwecke is the Vice President of Transmission and Storage for Southern California Gas Company. Michael Webster is the Executive Director of Power System for the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Welcome, and I understand you guys have a coordinated presentation. Is that accurate?
We do indeed.
Okay.
First, my name, again, Rob Oglesby, Executive Director of the California Energy Commission. Great to be here again. Chair Hueso, committee members. We will give a coordinated presentation. There are more presenters than seats here, so it'll be a seamless ballet of testimony as we come and appear before you.
It's a visual.
So 2 points just as a preface. We focused on reliability for this presentation. This is a technical analysis of gas and electrical reliability for the summer only. And so the focus of the presentation is limited to that. I know you have other questions we'd be happy to discuss long term, but this presentation, which is before you, had that one purpose in mind. Also want to acknowledge Senator Pavley's leadership and expertise and depth in this subject matter. She's joined every venue, every aspect that there has as this issue has developed and gone along from the beginning of the leak through the present. And so while much of this report is going to be a rerun, if not all of it will be a rerun for Senator Pavley, but I really appreciate the opportunity to run through this kind of foundational document for everyone to be introduced to this issue. So the page 2, just regarding the wells themselves, our sister agency, the Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources, also called DOGGR, is overseeing the safety review of the site. In conjunction with the national labs, they developed the protocols to do in-depth and thorough testing of the 114 wells. There will be no gas injected until they determine that the site is safe and can receive gas. We don't know when their review is going to be completed or how many wells will be cleared. They either have to be determined that they're suitable for injection and use, or they have to be plugged or taken out of production. In the meantime, DOGGR, Division of Oil, Gas, Geothermal Resources, has issued emergency regulations that apply to all gas storage facilities in the state, and they're developing, and then they're in the process to do permanent regulations. If you turn to the next page. Since December, when it became evident that reliability, electrical reliability, and gas reliability was going to be a big issue going forward, the state agencies plus Cal ISO, the Independent Systems Operator, and LADWP have been working together to assess the circumstances and how the systems interrelate, and it's complex. The interrelation is complex, and what the risk is to reliability and going forward. We relied on SoCal Gas for their expertise and understand their operations as well, and we prepared a technical assessment report, which was made available in draft form for public comment, which we've received. We're in the process of preparing responses to public comments received, but it's been a very transparent process as far as doing the workshop and soliciting comments, and then we'll be responding to them. As again, it focused on this summer. We'll be doing another workshop to look ahead at winter later this at the end of July or early August. And we will be looking at the longer term issues in future analytical endeavors. We have a report due on the viability of natural gas storage in 2017. So with that, I'll turn to Katie? Or Randolph, Ed Randolph next, sorry. So much for a seamless ballet.
Yeah, seamless ballet. I'm Edward Randolph. I'm director of the Energy Division at the Public Utilities Commission. Shortly after the leak started, the agencies, particularly CPUC and Dogger, had ordered SoCalGas to withdraw gas out of the field as quickly as they could to meet local demand. The goal at that point was to reduce pressure in the field. That would actually slow the rate of the leak, and initial engineering analysis thought that might help with plugging the well. As the volume in the field got lower and lower, we began to be concerned that there wouldn't be enough gas in the field to meet reliability needs in the winter and in the summer. In the winter time, it's for residential customers, what we typically refer to as.
How long are they speaking each?
I'll be back in 3 minutes. Sorry.
I'm in charge.
Yes. In the winter, we began focusing on the residential customers, typically referred to as core, and in the summer, the biggest concern is the commercial industrial customers, referred to as non-core. The biggest two of those from a volumetric basis are the electric generators and the oil refineries. We, at that point in January, had ordered the utility to stop withdrawing gas once it got to 15 billion cubic feet in the field, unless they needed to withdraw gas for reliability purposes. How we got to that number of 15 billion, and it's first off, that was a fairly quick analysis. The analysis we did for the summer was much more in depth. It was based on looking at historic patterns over the last couple of years of usage and what we knew from publicly available data and prior commission's decisions on how much was needed in the field to meet a peak day event. So how the math worked on the 15 billion cubic feet was there was a certain volume, it's approximately 0.6 billion cubic feet needed in the field to create the pressure to get enough gas out of the field on a peak winter demanded day. That's the starting point. We then looked at how much gas had been withdrawn out of the field in previous years in the wintertime, which was approximately 5 billion cubic feet. How many was pulled out in the summertime was approximately 5 billion cubic feet. And I said one math equation wrong at the beginning. On a peak day, you need approximately 0.6 billion cubic feet of total withdrawal from the field. Under how the field used to operate, you need about 5 billion cubic feet in the field to create the pressure to get that amount of gas out of the field on a given day. So the starting point is we want 5 billion in the field. On prior years, we took about 5 billion out of the field in the wintertime for reliability purposes, about 5 billion in the summertime for reliability purposes. Those added up to the 15 billion, so that's where that cap was put into place for reliability, unless it was needed for reliability purposes. The good thing is this was an unusually warm winter, which means no withdrawals were needed from the field in the wintertime. So we anticipated going in the summer that there would be approximately 10 billion cubic feet in the field. We're at 15 billion cubic feet, so we have a little bit more to play with. On talking about the 15 billion cubic feet, what's needed for reliability purposes is worth noting here because Senator Pavley's bill has a requirement that we do an analysis on how much is needed in the field for reliability purposes going forward. That may not be 15 billion. And the reason why that number will likely be different over the long haul is as the wells are inspected, and there's less wells available for withdrawal, and as they use the wells differently for withdrawals, it'll probably be a different amount of gas that's needed in the field to create that pressure for the withdrawal. I anticipate it being higher. I don't know how much higher. That's going to be our next round of one of many studies we'll have to do next. The next slide, for those of you that have the slide decks, is a map of the impacted region. I think a lot of you have seen this slide before. What's important to note on this slide is within the region that's impacted by Aliso Canyon. It covers several electric utilities. The yellow goldish area is Los Angeles Department of Power. The white area is what's under the California ISO balancing authority area, but is mainly Southern California Edison as the utility. It also shows the major generation plants out there that are impacted by the field. It's also worth noting as we get into discussions of mitigation measures. Some mitigation measures will be very effective within that region itself. And if they're done outside, reducing gas load significantly outside of that area does not help significantly with the issue this summer. It helps some. Others, because of the way the electrical system will help further out. And so on each mitigation measure we come up with, we're starting to have a separate conversation on what the geographic region for that mitigation measure would be. With that, I think, Katie, you're next.
Yeah. Good morning, Senators. My name is Catherine Elder. I work under contract for the California Energy Commission. I've got about 30 years of experience in the natural gas business, both utilities, industrial customers, intervening in rate cases, sometimes testifying against SoCalGas. Other folks, Alaska, Washington as well. I've been the natural gas expert on this team. On the next slide, we talked a little bit, or we tried to show people, sort of give them a sketch of the general problem that we're talking about. And we outlined on it what SoCalGas's nominal, and I say nominal for a reason, pipeline capacity coming into their system is about 3.8 BCF per day. If we add to that the amount of storage that we could take advantage of, looks like we could serve about 5.7, 5.5 BCF per day, no problem. And you go, yeah, no problem. We'd have a reserve margin even on our peak day of a winter peak day of maybe half a BCF. But what we know from looking at the data is that customers don't necessarily bring into the system enough gas every day to meet their requirements. And in fact, under the tariff, they're not required to. They're allowed a considerable tolerance of 10% of their monthly load that they don't have to bring in and match their demand on any given day. And that's going to be a theme of our analysis and our findings, is that difference between the gas that they schedule to come into the system and the amount of gas they actually use causes us a problem without Aliso Canyon that we're going to have to try to fix in our action plan. So it looks like on any given day or on an average number of days over the course of the year, we really don't tend to see more than about 3 BCF of gas come in. So we've got that 3.8 BCF of capacity, but only about 3 BCF per day tends to come in. In fact, of all the days in the past 3 years, only 18% of the days did we see 3 BCF or more come into the system. If you compare that to what we can get out of storage without Aliso Canyon available, those two numbers add up to about 4 BCF per day, and that leaves us short on a peak day. So that just tries to give you a general sense of the problem from that very general daily, what I call gas balance perspective. The analysis that we've done goes much further beyond that, and I'm going to describe that for you in just a moment. The other thing that we found is that Aliso Canyon got used on many more days of the year than we thought it did. So even me, who's accustomed to watching what goes on the gas system kind of week in, week out, and seeing what problems might occur, was surprised to learn how many actual days Aliso Canyon is used. And if you look down that last bullet, says that we used Aliso Canyon on 134 out of 151 winter days. And in the gas business, winter is November to March. And we only have 2 seasons, by the way, in the gas business. We don't worry about the shoulder months so much. And these seasons correspond with how we inject and withdraw from underground gas storage. And in the summer, I would have guessed off the top of my head that SoCalGas used Aliso Canyon maybe 30 days out of the summer, and it's twice that many. So that was a surprise to learn. And again, summer in the gas business is April through October. So this more detailed analysis that we started to do, having done the sort of the high level look at the daily gas balance and seeing it looked as though we didn't have enough capacity on a peak day. And we have this problem of how often customers do or do not actually bring into the system enough gas to match their demand. It requires we do a different kind of analysis than what we've laid out on 2 slides ago. And that analysis is what we call a hydraulic analysis. And it's called hydraulic because it uses differential equations that measure the compressibility of a fluid in a pipeline. So I think they apply both to water as well as to natural gas, or there are versions of each. And they take into account the diameter of the pipeline, the minimum and maximum operating pressures of the pipeline, as well as the number of places and the locations of those places where gas comes into the system, and the number of places and locations where the gas leaves the system. And all of those things are way too complicated to keep track of in my brain or in a simple spreadsheet. So we use a more complicated calculator to do that for us. What it allows us to do is watch over the course of the gas day, and through every hour of the day, we can look at how the pressures, operating pressures in the pipelines, at the metering stations, at the compressors, at various valves on the system. We can look at how the operating pressures vary as supply and demand vary through the course of the day. Because we also know that gas tends to come into the system on a ratable, hourly, even basis over the course of the day, but demand isn't. So the way you deal with that is with storage. So what we found when we do that analysis is where and when we end up with violations of the pressure, where the pressure drops too low to support sustainable operations. When the operating pressures drop too low, SoCalGas has to curtail in order to protect the overall integrity of the system. There are also safety problems if gas pilot lights go out. We have gas wisping through the system. Wisping is not a very technical term to try to describe a technical phenomenon, but as that gas kind of puffs through the system, that can create safety problems, and we don't want those things to happen. The model results frequently get tested against actual operations. Another way of saying that would be that it's calibrated against actual system operations pretty frequently. The modelers talk to the operators to make sure that they're modeling what actually happens on the system. There have also been proceedings at the PUC where the results of this particular model have been presented in testimony, and a third party has been used to actually review the results, run the model, and confirm that they got the same result. And that approach, or the approach that we've used here, which is to have SoCalGas run the model for us, is a common one in large proceedings. And the Public Utilities Code actually allows that to happen. The utilities don't necessarily have to hand someone their model. They can run the model for the party and provide the results. And I'm going to turn this over to Mark Rothleader.
Thank you, Senators. My name is Mark Rothleader. I'm the Vice President of Market Quality and Renewable Integration at the California ISO. Before I get into slide 9 of the analysis and what we did, I just want to give some context about what a balancing area is responsible for in the electric system. So a balancing area has a primary responsibility of maintaining electric reliability in its area. The California ISO, LADWP are both balancing areas that reside in, have customers in the Southern Cal Gas system and operate generation for the system reliability. 3 primary responsibilities of the balancing area. One is making sure that we are balancing the system. So supply and demand are balanced, and that manifests itself by ensuring that we're maintaining system frequency at 60 hertz. The other thing we have to maintain is operating reserve. And so we have to have enough unloaded capacity on the electric system so that we are prepared for a single largest contingency event, a loss of a generator, a loss of a transmission line that can take system capacity out of play on the electric system. The other thing that the balancing area is responsible for is ensuring that the transmission lines are operated within their rated limits. And that's both under normal conditions as well as being prepared for contingency conditions. Again, a loss of a transmission line or a loss of a generator, we need to ensure that the remaining transmission elements remain reliable. This responsibility includes the possibility that if we are not able to maintain one of those criteria, that we have a responsibility to ensure that we do not spread a reliability issue to the other parts of the interconnection, the western interconnection. There's 38 balancing areas across the western United States. And in order to maintain that reliability, there are times that we have to take actions that include potentially interrupting electric load to ensure that we're operating our balancing area reliably and not allowing a cascading event to transmit throughout the rest of the western interconnection. So with that description, I wanted to dive into a little bit of what we did in terms of the assessment. So there was two parts of the assessment. There was the gas operations assessment, and then we used that information to assess the reliability and the operation integrity of the electric system. The team basically selected 4 days for simulation. These days were selected because, one, they were a peak summer day. Two, they had a large amount of generation that was ramping during the day.